Bring to us your poetry, from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 12 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Bergio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Bergio. Phil, welcome.
Thank you.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. I want to start by saying thank you to all of our guests, and especially our listeners who have made You're the Poet possible. We hope you enjoy the podcast and the poetry that is shared here. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is Peter Rivers. Peter, welcome.
What's up, poetry people? Thanks, gentlemen.
We're glad you could join us, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to share a classic poem for the episode. This is William Blake's The Tiger. This is one of my favorite poems of his that I was introduced to in English literature classes in high school, and it's also one of the poems that I memorized during a time when I was memorizing poetry. A lot of good imagery here. The Tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? William Blake.
Good job. Good poem.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that certainly was a powerful metaphor to me. It just kind of made me kind of think of the, duality in human nature, where it kind of, you're at the forefront, you're your own tiger, essentially. You got to be the hero of your own story. And it can be intimidating and it can consume you essentially at times. And I just thought that was a really powerful piece because you come from the same place, the lamb or the lion or the tiger, as it were, and you get to choose.
I agree. I've always liked the strong imagery there as it kind of breaks down all the parts of the tiger and that strength, even kind of questioning the creator in a sense.
Absolutely.
All right, from there, we're going to turn it over to Phil to share some poetry for this episode. Phil?
Okay, this poem is called Somebody Stir the Sauce. It's kind of like a inside joke with my sisters. We even talked about compiling a family cookbook, and this would be the title. Every Sunday, my mother would put on a big pot of pasta sauce, and just out of nowhere, she would just yell out, "Somebody stir the sauce." And it was like she had it timed. Somebody stir the sauce. My mother taught me how to cook, not by classes nor by book, but subtle little hints put out, all the steps she took. I learned by watching her use her skills that made the food so great, all the meals, 3 a day, heaped upon my plate. I also learned by other chores, like cleaning pots and much, much more. Going to visit Mrs. D to ask for herbs for my ma's tea, and also herbs for her pasta sauce, that magic brew that's hard to cross. But my favorite task was when Mom would ask, "Somebody stir the sauce." For me, all the memories, that one was the best, of cooking lessons and wisdom shared, that one will always last. Philip Bergio.
All right, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's also become a joke around here in our kitchen, growing up and through the years about stirring the sauce and hearing the stories of my grandmother. Unfortunately, she was older when I was around, at least in an age to remember such things. And so I don't think I ever got to experience her cooking.
Yeah, you do when I cook.
Truth.
So the most amazing thing, it takes me to a place where growing up, it was always, let me get some of the sauce. Let me get some of the sauce. Well, I met somebody who's Italian, and all of a sudden they say gravy.
Yo,
I'm like, my brain exploded. I'm
now
like,
that's
what?
that's a big debate among Italians. Even like one block away. I hear New York City, 1 block away, one family call it sauce, one call it gravy.
Yep, big time.
It's sauce. It's
I've always known it as sauce,
it's
but
fugu.
I
nice.
just thought I'd add that little spicy controversy.
That's good, but it is controversy. Yeah,
Now we like that. Thank you.
that's almost as bad as putting pineapple on a pizza.
I love pineapple on a pizza. Sorry,
We'll talk
guys.
about that, so I understand.
All right. From there, we're going to move on to my part of the episode. I'm going to share a poem entitled When Living Your Life in Limbo. This poem was inspired, or I don't know if inspired is the word, but it came out of a time in my life where I didn't know what was going on. I'm one of those people that have always had a plan. I like to have a plan, and found myself in a situation where I didn't know what was going on, a lot of emotions, and that's where this poem developed from. And it's kind of got a circular nature. If you listen, there'll be a turnaround where there'll be a line searching for my lost emotion, and then the poem kind of flips and goes back the other way. When living your life in limbo. When living your life in limbo, the days are an unending void. They slowly pass on while they're laughing, and drag on while you get annoyed. Your mind turns and swirls, your stomach does curls, and sanity threatens to leave. Escape with me and set me free, providing me with some motion. Open the door, I'm looking for more, searching for my lost emotion. Close the door, I'm looking no more, assuming I've lost all motion. Escape from me and go be free, your sanity threatens to leave. Your stomach will curl, your mind turn and swirl, and drag on while you get annoyed. Days will pass on while you're laughing. They're always an unending void when living your life in limbo. Matthew Bergio.
I don't think I've ever heard that poem before.
Probably not. There's probably a lot of poems I've written that you haven't heard, especially ones that I feel come from like darker places in my life.
Nicely recited.
Thank you.
You did a very good job. So I definitely enjoyed the flip that you were saying. You kind of brought it full circle. You know, to me, that's the good sign of very good poetry is you got to hook them in the front end and you got to put it to bed in the back end.
Right. I agree. All right. Well, thank you guys. From there, we're going to turn it over to our guest. Peter, welcome to You're the Poet. You're the Poet. Show us what you've got.
All right. Well, my name's Peter Rivers. I'm from upstate New York. I'm 40. I've been writing poetry for close to a year and a half so far. And I just published my first book called Storming Oblivion, available on Amazon.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Quite a privilege. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of a romantic one. This I call Angel Eyes, I See You. My thoughts of you rise with the morning sun. Easily have I gone at least 1,000 miles. Your face, the place I run. My chest, swift of rhythmic beat like dancing feet. Your voice, a face of angel with lips on chatting wings, casting divine, inspiring hypnotism for words, a spell. Sweetest tone, innocence flown, breathless, tuning in shy ears. How does it make you feel to know I see you? I don't mean that regular guy, I see you. I see you hiding in your shell, painted, eyes of angel, walk of grace, style of taste. I see you, weight of hell, scars of demon thief, relentlessly gifting, optimistic doubt, curious suspicion, courageous fear. I see you carving routine into despicable stone, unrecognizable to your mind's design. Mirror reflecting a girl lost in thought, overtaken by exhausted panic, screaming, I see you. Unwanted audience, paralyzing your mind as a second hand ticks its last tick, lifeless on battery frozen in time. Angel Eyes, I See You, by Peter Rivers.
All right. Thank you for sharing. I like that. And I like that imagery of the whole concept of the I see you, not just like, oh, I see you, but I really see you. And a lot of good lines with that. I like that eyes of angel, walk of grace, style of taste. But yeah, a lot of powerful imagery there as you're kind of looking to the soul of the person.
Thank you very much. And that's, I guess, where I was kind of going with that one is it was kind of a time in my life where sometimes you meet that person and you kind of feel like you're just from two different worlds. And quite frankly, sometimes you feel like they're out of your league a little bit. That one was kind of inspired by a time where I felt that way by somebody, I ended up being special to her because I guess I saw her, and it wasn't that typical superficial I see you kind of. I see her as a person instead of the way that she looked. She made me think that that wasn't something she had encountered a lot. It just was a very genuine concept to me because we kind of think of sometimes beautiful people as having that pretty girl privilege, for lack of a better term.
Right.
I understand.
But it can be very isolating to them as well because then people always have an angle. So finding genuine people is in high demand and short supply in their world. It's difficult in a different way, I suppose. So it's just highlighting that.
Peter, you got another one for us?
Absolutely. This one I called Reminisce the Fading Blaze. It's a fall season themed trio lay for you foreign poetry fans out there. Long days fade, shadows stretch. I feel the crunchy autumn rain. Bright ruby reds, oranges, yellows, fireworks, a portrait painted of this waning sun. Fallen canopy, we leave you, so bare and so plain. A leaf's life, nature's color palette in a living campaign. Ending in a crumbly pile of brown, only decay to remain. It's breezy and cool, the harvests have begun. This might be the season for everyone. Long days fade, shadows stretch. I feel the crunchy autumn rain. Bright ruby reds, oranges, yellows, fireworks, a portrait painted of this waning sun. By Peter Rivers.
All right, I definitely like that one, and I think mainly because of the fall. Like you said in the poem, might be the season for everyone. I tend to agree. I think fall's the perfect weather, the perfect everything. You know, the trees up there doing their colorful things, especially I bet because you're in the upstate New York
All
area.
those leafers you got up there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
leaf peepee like crazy.
Leaf peeping. I like that.
Yeah, I bet that's beautiful. And I mean, I love it here, and I've seen it up there, and I've seen it in West Virginia, and even down in Tennessee. I'm kind of blessed in this area with that view.
The poem I read, episode 1, is about leaves.
Love that. So before I read you this last one, the reason why I kind of got into poetry was my own journey of self exploration, and not self exploration because I knew myself. It was more of a journey for self expression. When, you have a life of trauma, which we all have our stuff. It's different for different folks, not that mine's heavier than anyone else's. It's just different. Maybe I've had more than some. So that I put a lot of emotion in my poetry. And for me, I don't see a lot of people that touch or weave their emotion in such a level into their poems the way that I do, because it's difficult. It exposes who you are, because you're going to learn more about me as a human by reading Storming Oblivion than you will in a conversation with me. That's real for most poets. You're getting pieces of our soul, little dark places, little hidden places that we reserve only for ourselves. And we gift those to the audience that we're trying to inspire or just have moved by our own emotion. That's beautiful to me because you can be taken to my place, your place, another place entirely that you didn't think of or I didn't think of. And reading the same thing several times can get you a different result no matter what. And to me, that's profound. And as a way of expressing, poetry is that beautiful way to kind of disguise things and kind of get you going to be more okay with yourself. The more you're willing to accept yourself, the more other people are going to accept you. That's, I guess, what my mission as a poet is to try to inspire people to want to express and let them know you're unique for who you are. You expressing who you are is profound and important because there's no one else like you. And some people need to hear it the way you say it.
Good thought. Good philosophies.
Yeah, and I think that's very true for a lot of poets. And I've even been a little surprised on this show so far where we've had some guests really open up to some deep personal things. And I know for me as a poet, I've written some deep personal things that have, been in the darker times of my life. But other times I not try, but a lot of times I tend to shy away from that. If something's really there, it kind of makes me not want to write, even though I feel like it could be a way to get things out there. And we also talk about on the show, or not on the show, but Phil and I have talked about how, when we had trouble getting guests originally, it's like, well, a lot of poets are introverts and they're writing about these deep personal things that they're maybe, hesitant to share about.
How did you find out about us in the podcast?
I posted some poems in some groups, and it was some new groups that I hadn't been in before. And I think he responded to one of my poems, or maybe it was something like I put out the advertisement for my book. And I don't know, one of you guys mentioned something to me, and that's how I discovered you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it was. I think
So
I
thank you
probably,
very much.
yeah, not a problem. Thank you for taking it seriously as far as I'm always afraid people are going to think it's some kind of scam or that we're up to something. And we're just trying to invite people to come and share their poetry.
Absolutely. There's a lot of that in these spaces, as you know, a lot of people trying to take advantage, disingenuous folks like, here, have a trailer for your poetry book or and it's like, that's so disconnected from poetry. Poetry is about emotion. I don't want an AI voice talking about space exploration as a trailer for my poetry book. That's not what we need. But that's what all these people are trying to sell you. It's like, oh, you need that to promote your book. It's like, oh, okay, go ahead and talk to the next guy. So,
Right.
there's tons of that. All right, so I got one more. This one's called Storming Oblivion, the namesake of my book. Tangled I am in thought that is oblivion lost. Rarely I knew any line I had crossed. There, boy, you got what you deserved. Then off you went, so cold like the frost. I'm the waiter of scraps, busboy clearing booth loads of self loathing. Choices have a cost. These flames, they rage. No wonder. This pain buried is from my growing stage. I locked him up, on display for humiliation, tortured pity party in a cage. Every Friday night, my digital couch, talking through inventory of an early age. Many days, I just sit here, drifting off to nowhere fast. My thoughts a constant twirling in a life so constant swirling. Soldiers at war, wall to wall like nothing I've ever seen before. Paintings of tragedy, glories of wasted life, scenes of a wished for life. All hanging here so perfect, so vivid, not one a metaphor, my paint by number view. I feel like I am something strange, born to become a storm I do perform. On the horizon, I see the clouds. They come, lightning flash and thunder crash. I am the naked skinned pin nothing, oblivion within a whisper lost to the wind. I forget though, brainwashed, waves crashing, thrashing, splashing, smashing. These rocks pummeled, pounded, and smooth. In and out, patient, steady. Certainty of doubt, my only truth. I'm just a monster to you, chained secret. Sloth saying, Baby Ruth. Panic, heart beating faster. Trap smothered, heart beats faster and faster. Faster and faster. I think it's forming. Seconds, minutes, storming. By Peter Rivers.
Very powerful, very emotional there. And I think I made this comment before, but I love that I'm not the only one in my head that's reading Sloth Says Baby Ruth in the voice of Sloth. So I like that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Goonies.
On a lighter moment there. But I do love, there was another line. I love that I'm the naked, skinned pin nothing, oblivion within a whisper lost to the wind. I thought that was a great line in there.
Thank you very much. I love the little cultural references in my poetry, which if you buy my book, you'll see that stuff. I don't know, it just kind of makes me feel like it's genuine to my era that I'm speaking to and lets you kind of know me, I guess.
I think it's great. A lot of people, they'll throw mythology references and things. Why not pop culture references?
Right.
And speaking of your book, I did pick up a Kindle version of it on Amazon. If you want to tell the listeners where else they can get it, I know you can get it on Amazon, but if there's anything else you want to say about that.
Yeah, you can get a copy from my publisher. You can get it from wheelsong6@gmail.com. Don't forget this number 6. I'll leave you with this. If you want to find me, I'm in a space called Invisible Poets. I'm a moderator there. I run a show. You get to hear me read poems and highlight authors and books as well, right in that space. And that's something I do to promote poetry because I love poetry and I love converting people who didn't even like poetry or knew they liked poetry into poetry. I take that as like a personal challenge. If I can make someone who doesn't like poetry enjoy it, that to me means that I wrote something that's real, it's genuine, because it's purveying that emotion. And if I'm able to capture a non-fan and make them one, it makes me feel like I'm winning for the home team.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to comment on that. I was impressed. You said you'd only been writing poetry for about a year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nice. I think I saw Invisible Poet on Facebook. I will have to check that out.
It's a fantastic place. We do anthologies and help aspiring poets get published.
I've talked to a lot of people say, well, I don't write poetry, but I like it. Well, that's great.
Right. We need people that just love poetry and love listening to it, and love reading it.
It's also nice to get guests.
Absolutely. And Jim Morrison said it best: music and songs are just poetry in motion. And he proved it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, we're going to move on from there. Have a little feedback for this episode. First, I've got some feedback from, I'll just say, Who is Becca? This is feedback on episode 8 with KM Weldon. Loved this episode. KM really tied together the themes presented in each of the chosen poems, and I love how we got to hear her expand on her poetry. So thank you. Next one is from Brett E. He comments on episode 7. Man, I just listened to Mary's episode. Sheesh, that hurt my heart. Mary definitely had some personal things in there. Thank you, Brett, for the feedback. And our final feedback comes from Mariah S. This is on episode 9 with A. Benedict. I chased 1 million sunsets and they all burned me in the end. Loved that. So thank you, Mariah, for all the feedback you give us on this show. All right, as we wrap things up, we want to let our listeners know we are grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. There's a section there that answers questions about being a guest. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. Now that the You're the Poet community is expanding at a rapid rate, we have set up a patron site for those who would like to show their support for You're the Poet. You can find us on buymeacoffee.com/you'rethepoet. Thank you. Until next time, Phil, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
Peter, thank you for being our guest for this episode.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.